It's another Freak Out Friday, and this time the freak is $46 silver. We are there, and let's talk about what happened and why this rally has officially gone explosive as we explore. And try to skyrocketing rally we are in the midst of, with movements of moving above $1, it seems like, at a time, every day so far. It seems like we're getting moves like this. In fact, silver was over 3% today. It came within literally 32 cents of $47. Amazing, before it pulled back some today. And here's where the numbers stand. Everything is in the green today between these precious metals. Gold is up slightly, up $15.90 to $3,766.10. It's been an amazing ride for gold, but it is starting to kind of level out, at least to some degree here with gold. But silver is got a lot more headroom. Indeed it does. It is right now, moments before the markets close, up over 2%, 2.06%, up 93 cents to $46.16. It has pulled back some today because there's some resistance. I'm going to talk about that later in the video. But the bid price is still above $46, so we can celebrate that. Platinum and palladium have also performed quite well. In fact, platinum is up almost $50 today. You've heard me talk about platinum this morning, and I'm going to post a link to that video at the end screen here. Most of you have missed that video. You're not going to want to miss it, because I think we should start paying attention to platinum right now, because it neared $1,600 a day. It was within $8 of $1,600. It's right now at $1,582, a 3.22% move for platinum. Palladium is also up almost 2% today. The gold to silver ratio has narrowed even more now to 81.76. That is nearing a couple of year average of about 80 to 1. But nonetheless, I think it still should narrow much more greatly considering the rally we're seeing right now, which certainly is an explosive one for sure. And, it was a couple of days ago or last week. Shoot, it's hard to tell with time. Everything just happening so quickly. When we saw a pretty dramatic pullback for a day, but then it recovered very quickly as I predicted. But nonetheless, I think we are going to see maybe a few more of those, but those will just be hiccups in the overall bull run for silver. I believe it's here, folks, and I think it's going to continue to rise from here. And for me to say that is really somewhat unusual, but we live in unusual times for sure. I'm going to be referencing an article here from Kitco that talks a little bit about what was released today with some of these numbers. Before I get there, I want to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. They've been a great friend of the channel, and they've been a great friend to many of you who have experienced their great customer service. Elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. Now, we saw the gold prices reach of these important inflation reports that have been releasing after gold prices have reached their numbers today, up a bit. And the just released U.S. personal consumption expenditures price index came out as expected, rising 0.3% month on month, following a 0.2% gain in July. The core PCE minus food and energy was up 0.2%, also right in line with expectations and below the 0.3% rise of each of the previous 2 months. Annually, headline PCE inflation rose 2.7%, which is in line, but also the highest in 6 months, from 2.6%, according to the July report. Core PCE inflation was at 2.9%, also in line with market expectations. Both of those above the targets of the Federal Reserve, which is 2%. But they are in line with what the Federal Reserve numbers are. And that is important to understand, because that is going to weigh upon many different things of what the Federal Reserve is going to do. That has pushed the dollar index down slightly to 98.15. It's down 0.35%. But it has not changed the overall market in terms of where the Federal Reserve is going to go in the next 2 meetings. In other words, expect another rate cut with an 89.8% chance probability of another rate cut. That number just shifted from before when I checked it earlier in the day. So in other words, this is cementing the idea that we're going to see rate cuts in October and also in December, with that number also moving up slightly to 66%, compared to just 31.3% that believe the Federal Reserve will pause for that meeting. So in other words, more than likely we're going to have 2 more rate cuts. This is cementing the idea that we're going to see those cuts come into place to get the economy kind of moving here. And those easing policies are having an effect on the precious metal markets. Indeed, they are. In fact, right now, silver is up yet again. It's up now over 2% today, 2.12% in late trading to $46.19. So there's some pushback from the high volume that we saw earlier in the day for silver. It was incredibly high, pushing silver up to those high numbers of $46.68 as the high today. Now, the dollar index also, as we talked about, showing some gains, but it has hit a 4-week high against an upbeat U.S. GDP report that was better than the market expectations. We've talked about that too. The economy is multifaceted here. The GDP numbers are definitely good, but some of these other indicators are lagging, and that is having an effect. And the GDP report and other recent U.S. data are forcing traders to reassess the Federal Reserve trajectory on interest rate cuts. And now I've just went over some of those, and we will see what's going on there, as well as the other idea that we're factors that we're looking into about strong and consistent U.S. central bank buying for gold, keeping gold's price high, which is supporting silver here. Silver is now finally outperforming, which is a good thing to see. It's about time. Many of us think it's about time that silver has moved. And remember, silver at $46 an ounce is still far from its all-time high of $50 an ounce, and especially when adjusted for inflation. But when the grand scheme of things, when you got $46 silver, it's only $4 away from $50. And I still think there is a lot more that we could see that could move the metal up to that price. And so it's fascinating. Now, David Morrison, the senior market analyst at Trade Nation, said that positive economic data this past week, plus the Federal Reserve in a tough spot, which could slow the gain of precious metals. The Fed is in a very difficult position, and President Trump is likely to keep his personal attacks on the chair of Powell and other colleagues as we approach the next 2 monetary policy meetings. He thinks that the Fed may choose to emphasize its independence and only make 1 more cut this year, something it can easily justify given the strength of the U.S. economy. And so that's why some of the numbers are mixed for the next meeting coming in the 10th of December. But overwhelmingly, with almost 2-1, and definitely more than 2-1, believe it's going to be another rate cut. So I think that is a minimal point of view, and that is kind of being dismissed here. Now, what are we going to watch for next week? We got some important numbers coming out next week that's going to help us give some insight as what's coming. That'll get into some of the very basic technical aspect of why this is going to be a tough nut to crack, the $46.50 mark. Monday, we're going to get home sales, U.S. pending home sales, and then Tuesday, the U.S. JOLTS job openings, and then the U.S. consumer confidence rating. Wednesday, we'll see the U.S. ADP non-farm payrolls, which is some feel is a more accurate measure than we get from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then the ISM manufacturing PMI. And then Thursday, we'll see the U.S. weekly jobless claims numbers that will come out. And then Friday, we'll get U.S. non-farm payrolls and ISM services PMI. So those things will have an effect and factor and gauge on what the Federal Reserve is going to do. They have 2 mandates: a stable dollar and jobs, and to keep jobs going. So that's what their mandate is. So we'll see how that plays out. But remember, the dollar is losing value. Inflation is still here. And in some aspects, some can make a cogent argument for not cutting rates until we get it back in line to 2%. We know it's above that now, and that's one of the factors that has caused silver's price to go up, among many other things, including geopolitics. In fact, there has been an announcement that the Department of War, the head, Pete Hegseth, has called for all of his admirals and generals to come back together. The White House is downplaying the significance of that call, but some feel it could mean something big is coming around the corner. and geopolitics are already hot with the Ukraine war still waging on. No sign of that slowing down. No sign of any kind of agreement or negotiation. In fact, some of the talk that Trump has given on that has really been more to the aggressive side, which could lead to a wider conflict. Situation in Gaza remains still the same, although there's been an announcement that there could be a potential deal there. We'll see how that plays out. And there's other areas around the world that are still concerning. I mean, no one's talking about Taiwan nowadays, but could that still be a mitigating factor? I don't know. And China has still been relatively bold in that area. We'll see how that plays out. Now, along the technical side, $46.50 is a strong number of where some of the next resistance around that area. I don't know how much has changed today with it moving there, but I think that is part of the reason why we saw it back off pretty big from $46.68 earlier. Some people are selling. The volume has decreased, but still that volume in trading through the day has led, I think, to some profit taking, which is why it was kind of, siphoned off a bit there. So that's something to watch. In other words, it may be a tough road from here to 47 and into 48. We'll see. But who knows? It could blast right through it again. It just depends on where the emotions are, where the psyche is on those who are in the markets, buying the big bullion banks and what they're doing. But look for some resistance here as we continue to move forward, which is why I'm not ready to say, hey, it's all bets are off for $50 an ounce. But we'll see. And cautiously optimistic I remain. It's exciting to see silver move into areas we've not seen in 14 years. In 14 years, we need to get above 50 for it to be higher than that. And by the way, that would take us all the way back to 1980. And by the way, when adjusted for inflation, folks, we have a long way to go with silver. A long way to go. But remember, it's always nice to see positive movements for validation for us stackers. But remember, we don't need price as a validation for holding silver. We need silver to have validation for holding silver, because history is our guide, according to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution and the Bible. That's right. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the market today. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.